Thousands gather on the streets of Atlanta tonight, paying tribute to an urban music legend.
40-year-old Shawty Lo tragically passing away in a car wreck this morning.
I want y'all to try to tell me what rapper from Atlanta do you think really lived the street life? Shawty Lo, that's that rap and actually lived that life.
Man, that's my guy.
Yeah.
That's my guy. It was like, me and Shawty Lo, we just like real friends. We just, as soon as we met, we had just like a serious, we just started being partners from that day. And I think it's just because of who he was and who I was.
Shawty Lo was a major figure in hip-hop, especially when it came to the snap movement of the mid-2000s. That whole joyful, dance-heavy sound that took over clubs and radio stations, yeah, a lot of that came straight out of his Bankhead neighborhood in West Atlanta, and he was one of the pioneers who helped put it on the map. But on September 21st, 2016, tragedy struck, and the lights went out on one of the most charismatic rappers of his time. Shawty Lo was killed in a devastating car accident when his Audi A7 lost control, went over a guardrail, smashed into 2 trees, and caught on fire. He was ejected from the vehicle and pronounced dead on the scene. It was around 2:20 a.m., and just like that, hip-hop lost another legend far too soon.
Breaking news: an exit ramp on I-285 is back open after a deadly crash in South Fulton County. We're learning more this morning about the man killed in the wreck, local rapper Shawty Lo.
His death shook the rap world. Fans, friends, and fellow artists couldn't believe it. Shawty Lo was a cultural figure. But while people were still processing the loss, some disturbing things started happening in the aftermath of his death, things that left a bad taste in people's mouths and sparked serious outrage. One of the first shocking details to come out was about the large sum of money Shawty Lo had on him when he crashed. Now, there were 2 women in the car with him, and while they survived with non-life-threatening injuries, what they did next left people speechless. Apparently, these 2 women took the money Shawty Lo had on him. Instead of being in shock or just trying to make sense of what had just happened, they took his cash. As a matter of fact, given how things went, who knows if being more focused on taking his money made them take too long to call an ambulance, perhaps on purpose.
Rest in peace, Shawty Lo. Today we just found out that the girls that were with him that night, reckless, done snatched out all of Shawty Lo's bread out of his car.
At first, people assumed it was straight-up theft, but later reports claimed that the police actually gave them permission to take the money. And that only made things even more confusing. Like, why would officers allow something like that? Shouldn't his family be the ones who should have handled that? Regardless of whether permission was given or not, people were disgusted. It was a blatant sign of disrespect, and many felt like it was just wrong on every level. If you were in an accident where someone just lost their life, would your first thought really be to grab their money? It just didn't sit right with people. But unfortunately, that wasn't the only disrespectful thing that happened after Shawty Lo's death. Things got even worse at his wake. His family wanted to give fans a chance to say goodbye, so they decided to make the wake open to the public. However, they had one simple rule: no pictures. They just wanted people to pay their respects and honor his memory without turning it into a spectacle. But of course, some people just couldn't follow the rules. Despite being told not to take pictures, some people snapped photos of Shawty Lo in his casket and posted them online. And that did not sit well with his family, especially his children. One of his daughters took to Instagram and called people out for their disrespect. She wrote, "Y'all too disrespectful, and we did say no pictures and opened it to the public, but y'all disrespected us." Under her post, she added a photo of a note that read, "I'ma need for everyone to delete my effing daddy picture of him in his casket off they page." Shawty Lo was a hip-hop icon, so there was no way people were going to let these acts of disrespect slide. But Shawty Lo didn't just wake up one day and become a hip-hop icon. Before he was making hit records, he was running the streets of Atlanta, moving heavy weight and getting arrested almost 30 times. Shawty Lo grew up in the Bowen Homes projects on the west side of Atlanta, a neighborhood where the streets dictated how most people lived. Crime, violence, and drugs were a way of life, and Bankhead was controlled by hustlers who made their living in the drug game. Between June 2007 and January 2008 alone, there were over 168 violent crimes reported in the area. This was the environment Shawty Lo came up in. His home life wasn't much easier. His mother struggled with drug addiction and his father wasn't around, so he was raised by his grandmother. She had already seen her own kids fall victim to the streets and wanted to protect Shawty Lo from the same fate. For a while, she managed to keep him out of trouble. But when she passed away from cancer when he was just 17 years old, everything changed. Her death left a huge void in his life, and without her guidance, he jumped off the porch and got deep into the streets. But Shawty Lo didn't start off as a big-time dealer. He started out robbing people. He saw all the hustlers in Bankhead flashing cash, driving fancy cars, and living the life he wanted. But instead of waiting to work his way up, he went straight to taking what he thought should be his. Robbing people might get you quick money, but it also brings heat fast. That same year, Shawty Lo ended up behind bars. It was a wake-up call. He realized that if he was going to make it in the streets, he needed to move smarter. When he got out, he left the stick-ups behind and started focusing on the drug game. At first, he was just another small-time dealer trying to make a name for himself. But Shawty Lo was smart. He knew how to run a business and quickly built up his operation. It didn't take long before he was one of the biggest drug dealers in Atlanta.
I was a large drug dealer in the streets. I came from nothing. My mom was going through it, my dad was there as well. So it was, what I had to do to get my money, to get my food.
Unlike most local dealers who only bought from the bigger players in the city, Shawty Lo established his own direct connections with Colombian suppliers in Miami. This allowed him to bring in his own product and move it at a higher profit. While he never publicly revealed how much weight he was actually moving, people in the streets knew Shawty Lo was the real deal. After he died, many in Atlanta said that he was one of the last rappers who truly lived the life he rapped about.
I want y'all to try to tell me what rapper from Atlanta do you think really lived the street life and rapped about it? Shawty Lo, that's that rap and actually live that life.
But the bigger you get, the more attention you attract. By the time Shawty Lo transitioned into music, he had already been arrested 28 times. He knew that if he kept going down the same path, it was only a matter of time before he ended up serving serious time. That's when he decided to switch lanes and start rapping. In 2003, Shawty Lo founded D4L, Down for Life, a rap crew that included Fabo, Mook-B, and Stoney. Unlike most rappers at the time, he wasn't chasing a record deal. He had made enough money in the streets to fund his own label and even built a studio for his artists. At first, D4L wasn't making a lot of noise, and Shawty Lo ended up getting locked up again. But while he was behind bars, Fabo and the rest of the crew recorded a song that would change everything, Laffy Taffy. One night, Fabo went to Babes, a strip club in Atlanta, and brought some dancers back to the studio. He started freestyling, then pulled out a piece of Laffy Taffy candy from his pocket. That random moment inspired one of the biggest rap hits of all time.
Girl, shake that Laffy Taffy, that Laffy Taffy, shake that Laffy Taffy, shake that Laffy.
At the time, Shawty Lo had no idea what was happening. He was still locked up, facing 20 to 40 years on 3 different cases. But somehow, he caught a lucky break. Instead of serving decades, he ended up doing just 3 years with his sentences running at the same time. By the time he got out, D4L was blowing up. Their debut album dropped, and Laffy Taffy became a cultural phenomenon. The track hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, sold over 3 million copies, and in 2007, it broke a world record as the most downloaded song in history. Overnight, D4L became the hottest group in hip-hop, and they pioneered the snap music wave that took over the South. Shawty Lo followed up the success with his solo hit They Know in 2008, which helped him win Rookie of the Year at the BET Award. Even though D4L had originally been just a small crew, at one point, over 100 people were claiming D4L. What made the group so unique was that it was made up of dudes from rival neighborhoods, something that was unheard of in Atlanta at the time. But just when D4L was at its peak, things started falling apart. Instead of continuing as a group, The members went their separate ways, and Shawty Lo launched his solo career. Even though D4L was no longer together, Shawty Lo was still making waves in the industry. He had strong ties with Atlanta's rap scene, and one of his closest friends was Gucci Mane. Years later, in an interview with Charlemagne Tha God, Gucci said that Shawty Lo was more than just a rap associate. He was a real friend.
Man, that's my guy.
Yeah.
That's my guy. It was like, me and Shawty Lo, we just like real friends. We just, as soon as we met, we had just like a serious, we just started being partners from that day. And I think it's just because of who he was and who I was.
Shawty Lo was already well known in the industry thanks to D4L, but what really made him a household name was his legendary feud with T.I. T.I. is one of the most successful rappers to ever come out of Atlanta. Like Shawty Lo, he repped Bankhead and had a background in the streets. When T.I. started gaining momentum, he dropped his first video for I'm Serious in 2001. Interestingly enough, a lot of the cars featured in that video were borrowed from Shawty Lo, who was already established in the streets at the time. You can even spot Shawty Lo in the video, casually walking by. Back then, everything seemed cool between the two, but things eventually went left after Shawty Lo decided to pursue his solo rap career. By the time Shawty Lo left D4L to focus on his own music, T.I. was already a massive name in hip-hop. He had chart-topping hits, Grammy Awards, and was widely regarded as one of the South's biggest rappers. Despite all that success, T.I. always portrayed himself as someone who stayed connected to the streets. Naturally, Shawty Lo reached out to collaborate on a track, hoping they could make something happen. But T.I. turned him down, and that's where the beef started to take shape.
I had a song called Let's Get It that T-Lap would've got on.
According to reports, Shawty Lo felt disrespected. He had helped T.I. in the past by lending him cars for his video when he was just getting started, and now T.I. was acting like he didn't even know who Shawty Lo was. Shawty Lo didn't take the rejection lightly and started calling T.I. out. But T.I. had his own version of the story. He said it wasn't personal, he just wasn't feeling the song Shawty Lo wanted him to be on. That was it.
What people don't know is the reason he made that song, it was because I didn't get on a song that he wanted me to get on for them. But that just wasn't my thing, you know what I'm saying? I didn't feel it fit me. It wasn't, you know.
But as more details came to light, another layer of their history was revealed. Turns out, back in the day when T.I. was hustling and trying to make a name for himself in the streets, Shawty Lo was already a major player in the drug game. Naturally, T.I. looked up to him and approached him for guidance and help in the business. But according to T.I., Shawty Lo coldly turned him down, refusing to give him any support.
And I said the same thing that any Atlanta say when he wants you when he looking for an opportunity from you.
Yeah.
With me. I say, man, you know what I'm saying? Like 200, baby, you know what I'm saying? Something like that. And did me just like this. Get your weight up. Roll the dice, kept the game going.
Fast forward to the present, and T.I. didn't even realize at first that the same Shawty Lo who had reached out for a collaboration was the guy who had shut him down years ago. When he made the connection, he put his foot down and refused to do the track.
I ain't raised no hell, you know what I mean? And when I found out that was him, I was like, oh, nigga, get your weight up.
About a year before the feud between T.I. and Shawty Lo really heated up, T.I. found himself in a tough situation that put his street credibility in the spotlight. Just hours before he was set to perform at the BET Hip Hop Awards in Atlanta, the feds swooped in and arrested him. The charges were no joke: possession of 3 unregistered machine guns, 2 silencers, and being a felon in possession of firearms. Apparently, T.I. had tried to buy the weapons from someone who was secretly working with the feds, setting him up for what looked like an airtight case. For T.I., this was a nightmare. He already had a long rap sheet and was now looking at a potential 10-year sentence for the new charges. Fans were bracing for the worst, expecting him to face serious time. But then, something unexpected happened. T.I. pleaded guilty, and instead of a decade behind bars, he only received a 1-year sentence. On top of that, he ended up serving just a few months in prison before being released. The light sentence had everyone talking. How does someone get caught trying to buy machine guns, plead guilty, and walk away with barely a slap on the wrist? It didn't sit right with a lot of people, and Shawty Lo made sure to capitalize on the rumors. In interviews, Shawty Lo suggested that the only way to get a deal like that in a federal case was if you cooperated with the authorities. He didn't outright say it, but the implication was clear. He was calling T.I. a snitch.
Ticket caught all kind of guns, convicted theft. Murder service, go serve a year later on. You can't buy your way out of the Fed.
Shawty Lo's accusations got plenty of attention, but it turns out T.I. might have actually been the one to throw the first jab. Back in 2007, T.I. dropped the track Big Things Poppin', and some people believe he was taking shots at Shawty Lo in the lyrics. In one part of the song, T.I. raps, "Do it to the maximum, take it while you askin' them, don't listen to them suckers when they say you too irrational. See, I said I was king, and them lames started laughing. Them same suckers now want the king on a track with them."
Said I was king and them lanes started laughing. Them same sucker now want the king on the track.
The lines seemed to hint at Shawty Lo, who had been publicly upset about T.I. turning down his request to collaborate. After T.I. finished serving his time and got back to work, he addressed the rumors and the growing tension with Shawty Lo in an interview with MTV. He dismissed the idea that he needed to use anyone else's name to gain attention, calling it nonsense.
I never looked to gain acknowledgement or recognition by mentioning anyone else's name. If it was an issue with me and another person, it was an issue with me and another person. It wasn't a publicity stunt or a marketing tool.
When DJ Sway asked if Shawty Lo was even a real competitor for him, T.I. didn't waste much time on the question. He just laughed it off like it was a joke.
You see it as competition? You don't take it personally.
I'm sorry. Couple who?
That dismissal didn't sit well with Shawty Lo, who decided to hit back harder. He started questioning T.I.'s authenticity, calling out his claims about being from the west side of Atlanta, specifically Bankhead. T.I. had always proudly repped Bankhead in his music, but Shawty Lo was calling cap on the whole story. He claimed that nobody in Bankhead even knew T.I. and accused him of building a false narrative about his street ties.
Look, if anybody know T.I., I know everybody at school or high school didn't like him, so I got a reward, man. If y'all send me the yearbook pictures or something that's showing where he's from, man, I will pay y'all personally, man.
To drive his point home, Shawty Lo dropped Dun Dun, a diss track aimed squarely at T.I. But the line that really stuck and became a catchphrase in the feud was, "Dude said he from the west side. Well, Goodman, it must be two sides." That lyric hit hard and had people questioning T.I.'s entire backstory. Shawty Lo even made a whole video driving around Bankhead, interviewing people to see if they knew T.I. The footage was meant to embarrass T.I., showing that his supposed roots in the neighborhood were questionable at best.
This one original from Bankhead, man. You know what I'm saying? We won't know, man. How you seen T.I.? How you seen him? Y'all gonna try to keep trying to buy y'all mic. Well, we won't know, man. How y'all seen T.I.? Is he from Bankhead?
Man, we ain't seen no motherfucker wearing these motherfuckers, man. For real, man.
At the time, T.I. was one of the biggest rappers in the world, so having his street credibility challenged so publicly was a bad look. In response to Shawty Lo's constant jabs, T.I. decided to go all in with a diss track called What's Up, What's Happenin'. Not only did he come for Shawty Lo lyrically, but T.I. also filmed the music video in Bowen Homes, a neighborhood in Bankhead that Shawty Lo was closely associated with.
Hey, look, we gonna ride on up to the top of Baker Road, and then we gonna ride back down. I lead the way.
The track was ruthless, with T.I. coming for Shawty Lo and his crew with lines like, "I bet that what he get a show. Now that's a damn shame." I guess that what he hatin' fo boy, you so damn lame. Your clique the same, just a bunch of walkin'-ish stains. Disgrace the A, you give the city such a bad name. T.I. also addressed their past, airing out how Shawty Lo had switched up on him despite them being cool back in the day.
Still I hear you loud and clear on your little song. Go, get your dissing on, why?
T.I. also addressed Shawty Lo's antics of driving around Bankhead asking people if they knew him, calling it desperate and irrelevant.
Just saying they ain't heard of me. I'm certified, certainly. Them videos ain't hurting me.
Then, to add another layer, T.I. threw in, "Go on, get yourself high, cause I yelled Bankhead and you felt left out. I ain't mentioned your name. Is that what all this bout?"
Bankhead and you felt left out. I ain't mentioned your name. That's what all this about.
By late 2008, the tension was sky high. Then came the infamous Dirty Awards in Atlanta in November of that year, where everything took a turn for the worse. Both T.I. and Shawty Lo were in attendance, and their crews were eyeing each other from across the room. At first, things stayed relatively calm. There was tension, but nobody was acting out. That all changed when Shawty Lo hit the stage and performed his diss track, Dun Dun. The performance was like lighting a fuse. Reports say that as Shawty Lo was performing, members of T.I.'s crew started throwing chairs onto the stage. The chaos got so bad that the show had to be temporarily shut down while security tried to get everything under control. During the break, it's said that T.I. and Shawty Lo actually crossed paths backstage and supposedly squashed the beef, at least on the surface. But if there was any peace, it didn't last long. When the show resumed, T.I. hit the stage and, according to witnesses, threw more shade at Shawty Lo in front of the entire crowd. That was the final straw. Tensions boiled over, and their crews couldn't hold back anymore. A full-blown brawl broke out, with both sides throwing punches. The chaos was so intense that the cops had to step in and use pepper spray to break it up. Shawty Lo himself ended up catching a face full of it during the melee. After the brawl at the Dirty Awards, the beef between Shawty Lo and T.I. became one of the biggest stories in hip-hop. Every fan, blogger, and media outlet had an opinion on it, and it seemed like the tension was only going to escalate further. Shawty Lo kept the heat coming, clowning T.I. in interviews and even claiming T.I. got punched in the face during the chaos. At this point, fans thought there was no way these two would ever see eye to eye. It was all-out war, and people braced themselves for more diss tracks, more public drama, and maybe even more fights. But then, something unexpected happened. In a surprising twist, Shawty Lo and T.I. decided to put the beef to rest. To seal the deal, they even hit the stage together for a performance at T.I.'s club in Atlanta. Seeing the two of them together was a huge moment for the city and the culture. From there, both Shawty Lo and T.I. went on to continue building their legacies. T.I. solidified his spot as one of the greatest rappers to ever come out of Atlanta, and Shawty Lo remained a respected figure in the city. But then, tragedy struck when Shawty Lo passed away. Without Shawty Lo and D4L, the entire rap game in Atlanta would be different today. He paved the way for a ton of new artists to break into the industry. But unfortunately, he isn't around to see how big his impact really was.